Have you ever felt like you're standing on the edge of a cliff where the very thing that sets you apart is seen as your biggest weakness? That's the world technical sergeant Jessica Chen lives in. She's a brilliant pilot, a woman whose hands once guided helicopters through the treacherous skies with supernatural precision. Now her hands are folded neatly in her lap, and her most defining feature is the gleaming, high-tech prosthetic leg that everyone in the room views as a limitation. But what if that perceived disability isn't a limitation at all? What if, in a world of impossible missions and shattered expectations, her weakness is actually the one thing that could save them all? This is the story of a soldier fighting not only for her country, but for the chance to prove that true strength isn't about what you've lost, but how you choose to rise. The fluorescent lights in the operations briefing room at Fort Braxton Air Force Base hummed with a soft, high-pitched tension, a sound that seemed to vibrate in the chest as much as the ears. Their glare cast sharp-edged shadows across the polished conference table, where Jessica Chen sat with her hands folded deliberately in her lap. At 26, she carried a quiet intensity that unsettled people when they truly noticed her, though most rarely did. Her dark hair was pulled back in perfect regulation style, and her uniform bore the stripes of a technical sergeant. What drew every eye, however, was the sleek black prosthetic that replaced her left leg from the knee down, disappearing into a specially designed flight boot. It wasn't just a prosthetic, it was a piece of cutting-edge military engineering, titanium and carbon fiber, seamlessly shaped into a symbol of both loss and unyielding precision. At the head of the table sat Colonel Frank Morrison, a man who seemed to command the room by presence alone, his posture a fortress built from starched fabric and decades of unshakable military discipline. The ribbons across his chest told 30 years of stories, combat tours in Afghanistan and Iraq, the kind of missions that separated leaders from legends. Gray streaked his temples, and the lines in his weathered hands spoke of countless hours gripping flight controls, making split-second decisions that had determined who made it home and who didn't. To his right, Major Lisa Rodriguez sat with the poise of someone who had learned to keep her thoughts hidden behind careful stillness. She flipped through a thick folder stamped with layers of security clearances, the kind of file that could alter the course of operations no civilian would ever hear about. Directly across from Jessica was Captain David Blake. Young, confident, his expression held the particular brand of optimism that belonged to men who had not yet felt the sting of irreversible failure. The air carried the faint, oily tang of jet fuel, a scent that seemed to seep into the bones of the base itself. Through the reinforced windows came the distant, muted thunder of F-22 Raptors streaking across the sky, a constant reminder that this was a place where some of the most advanced aircraft on Earth prepared for missions the public would never know existed. Jessica's prosthetic leg was more than metal and circuitry. It was the culmination of $2 million in military research, titanium and carbon fiber reinforced with gyroscopic stabilizers, pressure sensors, and a neural interface that let her move it as naturally as the flesh and bone legs she had lost. The soft hum of servo motors whispered against the silence whenever she shifted, automatically adjusting to keep her balanced and comfortable. 18 months earlier, that leg had been taken from her by an IED during a supply mission over Syria. The explosion had not only ended her active flight status, but exiled her to a desk in flight operations analysis, a place where her deep understanding of aircraft systems was useful, but no longer essential. Before that day, Jessica had been one of the most promising helicopter pilots in her squadron. She had a preternatural ability to read the sky, to anticipate how weather and machinery would interact under stress. She had logged more than 800 flight hours in hostile zones, navigating night operations, storms that would have grounded lesser pilots, and missions where catastrophic mechanical failures somehow ended in safe landings because she could coax damaged aircraft to fly as if they still trusted her. The briefing room mirrored the cold efficiency of every modern military installation. One wall was covered in global deployment charts. A bank of monitors streamed live intelligence feeds from conflicts scattered across the world. The conference table itself bore the invisible weight of thousands of hours of high-stakes planning and the kind of conversations where failure meant body bags and folded flags. Colonel Morrison cleared his throat. The sound was soft, but it carried the absolute command of a man used to silencing entire rooms. Ladies and gentlemen, Mai said, his voice low but edged with steel, what I'm about to share is classified at the highest level. The mission under consideration has been declared impossible by every aviation expert who has seen its parameters. The words fell heavy. This was not the kind of impossibility born of bureaucracy. It was the kind carved into the bones of pilots who had tried and failed. Jessica shifted in her chair. She could feel every eye flicker, just briefly, toward her mechanical leg. She knew the look well, an unspoken question about whether she was a symbol of limitation or proof of adaptation. Major Rodriguez opened the folder with careful precision. Inside were satellite images of a landscape that looked as if nature itself had designed it to murder aircraft. Operation Silent Thunder, she began, her voice even, professional, almost clinical. We are tasked with inserting a 4-person reconnaissance team into the Kurdistan Mountains along the Iranian border. The target area is surrounded by surface-to-air missile installations, radar arrays capable of detecting aircraft from over 50 miles away, and weather conditions that push the boundaries of what our pilots have ever trained for. She slid a glossy image across the table. Jagged peaks rose like serrated knives, twisting valleys cutting narrow paths through the stone. Some of the ridges climbed over 12,000 feet, their sheer cliffs waiting to punish any pilot who drifted even slightly off course. Meteorological data indicated winds that could shift without warning, violent downdrafts and crosswinds appearing in seconds, fast enough to flip a helicopter or slam it against the mountainside. The enemy chose this location, Rodriguez continued, because they believe it is untouchable by conventional aircraft. Across the table, Captain Blake leaned forward, his voice bright with the kind of confidence that almost dared the world to break him. Sir, with respect, every mission seems impossible until someone figures it out. We have the most advanced helicopters in the world, pilots with thousands of hours in combat conditions. If anyone can make it work, it's us. His words carried the easy faith of a man raised on American air superiority, on the belief that enough skill and firepower could bend any situation to his will. Colonel Wilgerson's gaze hardened. The room chilled. Captain, he said, his tone cutting through the air like a rotor blade, this isn't about speeches or the capabilities of our aircraft. In the last 6 months, we've attempted 3 reconnaissance missions into that region. 2 aircraft were shot down, no survivors. The third made it back but was so badly damaged, it had to be scrapped. The pilot spent 4 months in rehabilitation and will never fly again. The weight of those failures pressed over the table, pulling at the chest like gravity. Jessica felt it in the silence that followed, the unspoken image of burning wreckage, of letters home to families who would hold a folded flag instead of a living son or daughter. Major Rodriguez continued, her tone steady but stripped of warmth. The mission requires an aircraft to fly at extremely low altitude to avoid radar detection. The pilot must navigate through mountain passes with less than 50 feet of clearance on either side, maintaining total control in winds that can jump from calm to 70-knot crosswinds in under 30 seconds. She paused to let the words land, then added, the insertion point is a plateau roughly the size of a basketball court, surrounded by cliffs that drop over 2,000 feet. Jessica leaned over the satellite imagery, her sharp mind already searching for patterns, for threads of possibility in an assignment that had chewed up and destroyed every attempt before it. Jessica Chen's mind went to work the moment the plan was laid out on the table. Numbers, angles, and timing sequences assembled themselves in her thoughts as if on instinct. She didn't just see a map or a mission outline. She saw the required approach vectors, fuel consumption curves, the razor-thin margins of error for a flight that would demand absolute perfection. This wasn't about raw piloting skill alone. It was about orchestrating an intricate dance of complex systems in an environment that no training simulator could fully replicate. Her prosthetic leg, once the reason she'd been grounded, had become the very edge that set her apart. But the neural interface that controlled it didn't simply obey her conscious commands. It learned her habits, anticipated the subtle shifts in her posture and intentions, and provided a constant stream of feedback. Balance, pressure, muscular tension, data that human pilots normally sense through fragile biological systems prone to fatigue and fear. now reached her brain through flawless mechanical translation. In a way, the disability the military medical board had stamped on her file had become something else entirely, a quiet enhancement that no other pilot could claim. Her analysis was interrupted by Captain David Blake's voice, sharp with frustration and wrapped in the confidence of a man who believed courage could bend reality. "Sir, I've reviewed the mission parameters," Blake said, his tone brimming with stubborn determination. "I know the risks, but with careful planning and superior flying, we can make this work. We can't let our enemies think there's any place American forces can't reach." It was the kind of bravado that looked heroic on a movie poster, but had a cruel tendency to get people killed in real combat. Colonel Frank Morrison rose slowly from his chair. His height and the gravity of his decades in uniform filled the room. This was a man who had carried the burden of command long enough to know what it cost when he was wrong. His gaze fixed on Blake with a steady authority. "Captain," Morrison said, voice level but heavy, "your confidence is admirable, but this mission requires more than courage." He let the silence stretch a heartbeat before continuing. "The last aircraft we sent on this route were piloted by veterans with a combined flight time of over 15,000 hours. They weren't green and they weren't reckless. They flew state-of-the-art aircraft under meticulous plans. And still," he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. The room went quiet, the weight of unspoken losses pressing down. Everyone there knew that somewhere in the Pentagon, decision-makers were staring at the same maps, demanding action that didn't care about risk or mortality. Strategic imperatives rarely waited for comfort, and the officers in this room were expected to find a way to do the impossible, whether or not physics, human limits, or enemy air defenses agreed. Jessica's fingers brushed the edge of the satellite photos laid out in front of her thoughts racing through patterns most pilots would never even see. Her prosthetic leg, connected seamlessly to her nervous system, gave her feedback that normal flesh and bone could never match under stress. While a human foot might tremble or falter after hours of strain, her artificial one delivered stability like clockwork. It was an extension of her will, immune to fatigue, precision without compromise. Major Lisa Rodriguez methodically gathered the classified folders, her efficient movements signaling that the briefing was drawing to a close. "Gentlemen and Sergeant Chen," she said evenly, scanning the room, "understand this. We are not here to collect volunteers. We are here to find solutions. If anyone has an insight that could make Operation Silent Thunder feasible, I want to hear it. But don't come to me with patriotic speeches. Determination doesn't override physics or enemy radar." The dismissal was clear. Chairs scraped softly as the others began to rise and file out, their boots muted against the thick carpet of the secure briefing room. Jessica stayed seated, eyes still on the images, mind spinning faster than the quiet around her. Her unique combination of engineering expertise and real flight experience was showing her angles and contingencies that no one else in that room could see. The same prosthetic leg that had marked her as grounded was now the silent partner in calculations that might just make the impossible achievable. Colonel Morrison paused at the door, his posture softening slightly as he noticed Jessica's lingering focus. He spoke in the careful, respectful tone of a senior officer addressing a subordinate who had earned attention through competence rather than rank. "Sergeant Chen," he said, "do you have something to add?" Jessica looked up, her voice even but purposeful. "Sir, I think I might see this mission from a different angle. My experience with adaptive flight systems and precision control in non-standard conditions, it could be relevant to what Silent Thunder requires." The colonel's eyes narrowed in thought, a flicker of curiosity tempered with the skepticism of long experience. He had heard bright ideas before, but he knew the difference between theory and survival. "Sergeant," he said after a moment, "I respect your initiative, but this mission requires active flight under extreme conditions. Your medical status keeps you on the ground." His words were professional, not cruel, but they landed like a barrier all the same. "Oh, Trinity." Jessica rose, her prosthetic leg adjusting automatically, providing her with perfect balance. "With respect, sir, my medical status might actually be an advantage. The neural interface gives me feedback and control beyond standard human limits. That could matter in a mission that requires this level of precision." Silence settled again, broken only by the hum of classified electronics and the distant roar of aircraft engines outside the fortified walls. Morrison studied her with the kind of measured attention that came from decades of making decisions where lives were the currency. Finally, he nodded once. Prepare a full technical analysis, Sergeant. Show me how your unique circumstances could apply to this mission profile, but understand this. Possibility is not the same as execution. This isn't an experiment. If we get this wrong, people die. Jessica inclined her head, understanding the weight behind every word. 3 days later, she stood in the Advanced Flight Analysis Center, deep in the reinforced sublevels of Fort Braxton. Here, far from sunlight, the military dissected the edges of aviation that the public would never know existed. A wall of high-definition monitors surrounded her, displaying a three-dimensional tactical simulation of Operation Silent Thunder. The digital mountains rose like jagged teeth, each peak capped by swirling cloud layers fed by real-time weather data from reconnaissance drones skimming the Iranian border. The terrain felt alive, shifting, treacherous, and unwelcoming. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Walsh, the base's senior intelligence analyst, stood beside her, arms folded, eyes sharp. Together they watched the mission's battlefield unfold across the screens, the enormity of the task pressing down on the room like the weight of the sky itself. The holographic projection table cast a perfect, three-dimensional rendering of the target zone, its light reflecting off the faces of those gathered around. 15 years of dissecting missions that others called impossible had shaped Lieutenant Commander Sarah Walsh into a woman who expected failure before she dared hope for success. It wasn't cynicism, more like the hard-earned wisdom that comes from watching too many good people die, chasing objectives that seem doable on paper, yet turn lethal in reality. The deep lines etched around her eyes were maps of sleepless nights, spent reviewing crash reports and debriefs, searching for that elusive reason why meticulous planning and superior technology had still fallen short against nature, weather, and human limits. Her voice, low and steady, carried the gravity of secrets only a handful of cleared personnel would ever hear. "Sergeant Chen," she began, her tone weighty with classified knowledge, "what you're about to see represents 18 months of intelligence work, satellite surveillance, field reconnaissance, and analysis by some of the most seasoned tactical planners in the military. Every angle of this mission has been scrutinized by experts in high-risk operations, and their unanimous conclusion," her pause let the words hang like a storm cloud, "Operation Silent Thunder pushes beyond the limits of what current military aviation can reliably achieve." The holographic display shifted, tracing the only viable approach route for any aircraft attempting to reach the target. The path was a twisted artery through the mountains, valleys so narrow that a helicopter's rotor clearance would barely fit, peaks that rose and dropped in brutal succession, and sections shrouded in cloud cover that could hide both sudden terrain shifts and enemy installations. Jessica Chen studied the floating terrain model with a predator's focus, her analytical mind parsing every curve and slope. Her prosthetic legs, linked to her nervous system by advanced neural interfaces, hummed with subtle feedback, data on balance, motion, and spatial geometry. The very technology that the medical board once labeled as a limitation was, in moments like this, an asset. Her interface let her process flight paths like an onboard computer, visualizing movements, angles, and reaction windows with mathematical precision no human limbs alone could achieve. In the corner, Dr. Michael Torres, the base's chief aviation psychologist, scrolled through grim records of previous attempts in the Kurdistan Mountains. Multiple screens displayed the evaluation reports of pilots, highly trained, combat-tested aviators, who had made critical errors under pressure. His role was to decipher why men and women, with ironclad nerves and impeccable records, had still failed. "The psychological factors here are as dangerous as the terrain," Dr. Torres said finally, his voice calm, clinical, detached in the way only mental health professionals discussing life and death thresholds could be. Every pilot who attempted these flights had outstanding service records, extensive combat experience, and stress resilience scores in the top percentile. Yet the combination of razor-thin precision, life or death stakes, and relentless time pressure pushed them into cognitive overload. That overload, he tapped the screen, highlighting patterns of decision errors, eroded judgment and motor skills faster than any of them anticipated. The data revealed an old, familiar problem in military aviation. Pilots capable of brilliance in conventional combat could crumble under conditions where good wasn't good enough. In these mountains, survival demanded absolute perfection, fractions of a second, margins of error measured in inches, and even the best stumbled. Walsh extended a hand toward the table. A different section of the hologram came alive, this time showing enemy defenses encircling the target like the ribs of a steel trap. Surface-to-air missile batteries dotted ridgelines and valley mouths, forming overlapping kill zones. Radar installations, their coverage arcs pulsing in the hologram, could detect an aircraft 60 miles out, sometimes farther. The enemy didn't trust the terrain alone, Walsh said, tracing the web of red markers. They place SA-15s and SO-17s in the valleys, with overlapping radar nets that can track objects the size of birds. By the time an aircraft entered the zone, we'd be lit up on multiple scopes long before reaching the insertion point. It was a fortress, crafted not just by nature, but by minds that had studied U.S. capabilities and engineered a counterplay. Every rock face and snowfield had been turned into part of a kill box designed to make traditional air tactics suicidal. Jessica's mind turned the defenses over and over, dissecting angles and possibilities. Her unique fusion of combat experience and prosthetic-enhanced spatial reasoning let her mentally fly paths that other pilots might never even imagine. She wasn't just thinking like a pilot, she was thinking like a machine and a human at once. Captain Amanda Foster stepped into the briefing circle next, her movements carrying the quiet tension of someone who had volunteered for this mission more than once, only to be sidelined for reasons beyond her control. The tremor in her hands was slight, but real, the kind that came from living too long with the ghosts of pilots who never came back. "Sergeant," she said, voice firm with the mutual respect of warriors who knew the price of failure. "Understand this, the crews who flew before us weren't green, and they weren't unlucky. Major Catherine Hayes logged over 1,500 hours in combat, 23 high-risk insertions, 0 incidents, and Captain Robert Martinez, he was the best night flying specialist we had, the kind of pilot who could thread a needle in a thunderstorm." Their names were like quiet thunder in the room. These weren't just colleagues, they were the elite among elites, the pilots other pilots tried to emulate. If they could fail, if they could die, it shook the foundation of every aviator who thought skill and willpower could conquer the sky. Doc Torres brought up their personnel files, glowing softly on the screens like ghosts returning to testify. Major Hayes had been chosen because her psych evaluations put her in the extreme top tier for stress tolerance and rapid decision-making under fire. Her simulator scores? Top 5% in the entire armed forces. Her commendations? Earned flying missions other pilots politely refused. The profiles told the same story again and again. Perfectly chosen operators with the right skill set, the right temperament, the right training. By every metric military science had to offer, they should have survived Operation Silent Thunder. And yet, they hadn't. Colonel Frank Morrison, Major Lisa Rodriguez, Captain David Blake, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Walsh, Dr. Tsunami. Michael Torres and Captain Amanda Foster sat in the dimly lit briefing room, the air heavy with the weight of failure. The names of the dead, Major Catherine Hayes and Captain Robert Martinez, lingered like ghosts. The discussion began with a grim acknowledgement. The mission's demands might simply surpass the fundamental limits of human capability. It wasn't about poor preparation or careless mistakes. Operation Silent Thunder had chewed up some of the best pilots the military had ever trained, and the mountains of Kurdistan had claimed them without leaving a trace. Lieutenant Commander Walsh adjusted the holographic display with a sharp flick of her wrist, pulling up swirling weather patterns over the jagged terrain. The simulation alone was dizzying. "Look at this," she said, her voice tight, teetering between professional composure and exasperation. Wind speeds in the region could swing from gentle breezes to lethal gusts within seconds. Rapid temperature shifts could throw off engine performance, while volatile atmospheric pressure made instruments lie at the worst possible moments. "The Kurdistan Mountains are a meteorological nightmare," she explained, her tone carrying the resignation of someone who could diagnose the problem but not fix it. "Turbulence here can generate downdrafts exceeding 2,000 feet per minute. Wind shear strong enough to flip an aircraft in under 3 seconds. Visibility that can go from crystal clear to 0 before a pilot even completes a single maneuver. Technology and training meant nothing in the face of nature's raw chaos. Meteorologists could predict general patterns, but the kind of precise forecasting needed for an operation like Silent Thunder didn't exist. Pilots were being asked to make split-second life-or-death decisions faster than human reflexes could possibly allow. Jessica Chen sat silently in the corner, her prosthetic leg resting with casual confidence on the cold floor. To anyone else, it was just a reminder of the accident that had ended her conventional flight career. But inside that carbon fiber frame were atmospheric pressure sensors, gyroscopic stabilizers, and a neural interface that fed her real-time environmental feedback no human body could sense. Where a biological pilot would rely on sight and gut instinct, Jessica's body processed multiple data streams at machine speed, keeping her perfectly balanced and oriented even when the world outside turned hostile. Captain Foster broke the silence by queuing up the last flight recorder from Captain Martinez's ill-fated mission. The audio filled the room, every syllable sharp and professional. "Control, this is Falcon 7, experiencing severe turbulence and instrument fluctuations. Wind conditions not matching forecast parameters. Attempting to maintain course. Requesting updated meteorological data if available." The calm in Martinez's voice was almost chilling. He followed every procedure, every protocol. For 90 more seconds, the recording documented a man wrestling with conditions that defied human reaction time. His tone never wavered, even as the situation became unsalvageable. Then, silence. No distress call, no scream, no explanation. Dr. Torres leaned forward, hands folded as he delivered his clinical verdict. The human brain can only process so much information at once. Under conditions like these, cognitive overload happens in seconds. Even the most skilled aviator reaches a point where reaction time and mental bandwidth are simply outmatched. His voice was soft, but the implication was brutal. Courage and training weren't enough. Biology itself was the limit. Jessica's neural interface didn't have that limit. Her prosthetic could analyze and compute responses faster than conscious thought, feeding her nervous system with solutions in real time. She was a bridge between human judgment and artificial processing power, a combination the Air Force had never seriously considered until now. Walsh, still at the console, pulled up classified intelligence. Operation Silent Thunder wasn't just a test of skill or technology, it was a moral imperative. The enemy installation hidden in those mountains coordinated strikes that had already cost American lives. If the facility stayed operational, more soldiers would die. "This isn't about pride or proving we can do it," Walsh said, her voice weighted with the reality of command. "It's about saving lives, but we can't keep sending pilots to their deaths when the survival rate is effectively zero. We either find a fundamentally different approach, or we accept this target is unreachable." The truth was plain. Continuing with traditional methods was not just futile, it was reckless. Yet walking away meant more body bags, more letters to grieving families. Jessica felt the weight of that choice pressing against her chest as she studied the flood of mission data. Where others saw an unbroken wall of impossibility, she saw patterns emerging, opportunities invisible to the purely human eye. The prosthetic that had once been her shame might now be the key to achieving the impossible. She wasn't just capable. She might be the only person alive who could bridge the gap between human intuition and machine precision. For the next week, Jessica descended into the classified archives 3 levels beneath Fort Braxton, into the humming heart of military memory. The climate-controlled chamber smelled faintly of ozone and cold metal, packed with servers holding decades of flight operations. There, surrounded by a silent chorus of machines, she sifted through millions of parameters, weather patterns, flight telemetry, biometric data of pilots now dead. The system cross-referenced everything at inhuman speed. Patterns began to emerge, subtle threads linking disaster to disaster. And slowly, methodically, a picture formed in Jessica's mind, not just of how Operation Silent Thunder had failed, but of how maybe it could succeed. Jessica Chen's prosthetic legs were no longer just tools for walking. They had become the bridge between her mind and a realm of data invisible to any ordinary human. The neural interface, painstakingly modified by the base's biomedical engineering team, connected her directly to the computer systems. Where an unaugmented brain would struggle, she could now process streams of information at blistering speeds, almost as if thought itself had merged with machine. Elizabeth Manning, head of the military's human-machine interface program, had dedicated half a year to designing the protocols that made this possible. With them, Jessica's artificial limbs were transformed into conduits between her consciousness and digital processing power, creating an augmented intelligence that could see patterns no ordinary analyst could hope to find. The data integration we're observing here is a leap forward in human-computer collaboration, Dr. Manning remarked, eyes flicking between neural readouts, brainwave oscillations, subtle eye movements, and the electrical chatter traveling through Jessica's nervous system into the prosthetic hardware. Your artificial limbs aren't just restoring lost function, Manning continued, her tone awed. They're expanding your cognitive reach in ways that could change how we tackle complex analysis forever. Before her stretched the archives, flight data from over 12,000 military aviation missions, including harrowing records from failed operations that mirrored the conditions of the ill-fated Operation Silent Thunder. As the hours stretched into 17-hour marathons, Jessica sifted through the torrent of information, correlating pilot stress responses, aircraft performance quirks, atmospheric patterns, and mission outcomes. Her prosthetics onboard computers chewed through data streams simultaneously, while her conscious mind performed the higher art of interpretation. And slowly, a disturbing truth emerged. She found that countless failures weren't caused by pilot incompetence or bad judgment. They were the result of training for a world that no longer existed. Climate data from the last 5 years painted an alarming picture. Weather patterns in mountainous regions had shifted dramatically, rewriting the rules that had once seemed unshakable. Winds once steady now whipped and twisted unpredictably. Temperature gradients, pressure shifts, humidity spikes, all combined to form flight environments that no simulator had ever prepared a pilot to face. "Look at this pattern," Jessica said, voice alight with discovery as streams of data spilled across the monitors. Pilot stress spikes the moment atmospheric conditions deviate from training simulations by more than 15%. It's not the actual danger-triggering panic. It's the brain realizing it's in an environment it doesn't recognize. The prosthetic sensors, originally intended to monitor her own biological signals, had become an unexpected edge. They could detect infinitesimal shifts in air density, pressure gradients, even faint electromagnetic fields, changes occurring in milliseconds, imperceptible to standard aviation instruments. The very limitations that had once made her body a challenge were now her greatest advantage. Manning watched the unfolding analysis with a mixture of amazement and dread. "This means our entire pilot training system is calibrated for a world that no longer exists," she murmured. "We've been training aviators for the skies of 10 years ago, not the skies they're actually flying in today." The implications were staggering. Mission failures and casualties blamed on human error might instead be symptoms of systemic misalignment. An entire generation of pilots trained for environmental assumptions that reality had quietly erased. Then came the breakthrough that reframed the mission entirely. On the third day of nonstop analysis, Jessica's prosthetic leg registered something no satellite or recon report had detected: subtle electromagnetic anomalies in the target region. The sensors that once measured muscle signals and nerve activity were now whispering of invisible threats in the air. "Dr. Manning," Jessica said tightly, mind locked on the racing streams of data, "I'm picking up electromagnetic signatures in the target zone. Signals that suggest the enemy is running electronic warfare systems our intel hasn't caught." Suddenly, the unexplained failures of Operation Silent Thunder and others like it came into focus. Instrument malfunctions weren't random or atmospheric. They were the silent fingerprints of hostile interference, cleverly designed to mimic equipment failure or pilot error. Manning wasted no time and called for an emergency briefing. Colonel Morrison was unavailable, but Master Sergeant Robert Hayes arrived instead. Hayes was a legend in military avionics. 40 years in the field, his hands scarred from decades wrestling with high-voltage systems, his gray eyes carrying the quiet weight of every life lost to a technical mystery. As he studied Jessica's findings, his gravelly voice carried both awe and gravity. Sergeant Chen, what you've uncovered here doesn't just explain silent thunder. These electromagnetic signatures match the anomalies we've been tracking in other theaters. Every time a pilot reported inexplicable system failures. Hayes had been chasing ghosts for decades, and now, in the quiet hum of the analysis room, the ghosts finally had a name. Beneath the cold glow of the dimly lit facility, Jessica Chen watched Master Sergeant Hayes trace his calloused fingers across a series of digital data streams, the patterns shifting like an unreadable language only he could decipher. His voice was steady, but the weight of years spent fighting a silent war against invisible threats seeped into every word. The systems the enemy's using, Hayes said, operate at frequencies and power levels that slip right under our conventional detection thresholds. They don't knock an aircraft out of the sky immediately. They gnaw at it, quietly, bit by bit. Jessica listened, her mind replaying every moment she had sat in a cockpit, staring at gauges she had trusted with her life. Hayes explained that the electromagnetic interference they were now facing didn't trigger alarms or flashing warnings. Instead, it crept in subtly. Navigation drift, radio static, instruments that lied just enough to make a pilot second guess, all while making it feel like a mechanical fluke. That realization reframed everything about Operation Silent Thunder. It hadn't been a mission that failed due to terrain or bad luck. They had been walking into an invisible ambush. Pilots had flown into a battlefield they couldn't see, trusting instruments that were quietly being turned against them. The enemy hadn't just chosen a treacherous location. They had weaponized the very air with electromagnetic warfare, shielded from traditional intelligence methods. Jessica's prosthetic leg, cold titanium and polymer fused with nerve endings, had become the unlikeliest hero. Its neural interface was designed to track the faintest fluctuations of her biological electrical signals, and that medical precision had made it sensitive to the kind of electromagnetic ripples that military aircraft couldn't even register. Where advanced fighters failed, her artificial limb whispered the truth. Hayes leaned closer to the data. His voice dropped into that low, deliberate cadence of someone carrying the gravity of too many years and too many funerals. Sergeant Chen, your prosthetic isn't just a medical device. It's a piece of tech our electronic warfare division has been chasing for a decade. You're walking around with sensors that outperform some of our most advanced systems. Jessica blinked, letting the words settle like a new weight on her shoulders. This leg, the one that had grounded her, ended the career she had once defined herself by, was now the key to a problem that had killed pilots better than her. Hayes pulled up classified files that painted a grim picture. Around the globe, American aircraft had been plagued by unexplained failures. Instrument drift, intermittent comms, erratic navigation. What had once been shrugged off as bad weather or mechanical aging was now revealed as a tapestry of hostile, invisible attacks. The enemy's systems didn't just disrupt. They humiliated their targets by making them question themselves. And yet, Jessica's prosthetic gave her a singular edge: real-time electromagnetic awareness, the ability to distinguish between an actual instrument fault and a hostile interference pulse, neural interfaces that let her process this hidden layer of the battle space while flying. Hayes admitted almost grudgingly that the human-machine interface program had poured over $50 million into research chasing what she now embodied by necessity. She wasn't just a pilot anymore. She was a living sensor array, a prototype of the future they had failed to engineer. When Dr. Michael Torres returned to the lab with fresh correlation data, the room seemed to tighten. His analysis confirmed what Jessica's discovery had suggested. Every instrument anomaly from prior Silent Thunder missions had been preceded by electromagnetic interference. Every crash, every failed attempt, had been less about weather and terrain and more about an enemy who understood American vulnerabilities better than they understood their own. The mission wasn't impossible. It had only been impossible for pilots who flew blind to the real battlefield. Jessica stood silent, feeling the tide shift inside her. The prosthetic that had once felt like a scar now hummed with purpose. She wasn't disqualified anymore. She might be the only one qualified. Hayes's eyes met hers, steel under the fluorescent lights. We've been fighting the wrong war in the wrong way. Your leg, it's not a weakness. It's the first piece of technology that can actually turn the tables. The revelation stretched beyond a single mission. This wasn't just about Operation Silent Thunder. It was about rewriting the rulebook for survival in modern air combat. Jessica had uncovered a gap in military doctrine, a blind spot that had cost lives. Now the question was whether the people in charge would be brave enough or desperate enough to let her prove that a broken pilot with a piece of cutting-edge necessity might succeed where tradition had failed. Fort Braxton's abandoned hangar loomed at the far edge of the base, a skeleton of corroded steel and faded warnings that read unsafe for operational use. Officially, it had been decommissioned 3 years ago for structural concerns. Unofficially, it had become Hayes's sanctuary. Rusted floor panels creaked under Jessica's steps as she followed him inside. Beneath those panels, hidden from the scrutiny of the chain of command, lay his secret, an underground test facility where the rules didn't apply. Here, they could experiment, adapt, and prepare for a mission no one else even understood. This was where the next phase would begin. Hidden away behind a facade of outdated, nearly forgotten military hardware, the laboratory stood as a fortress of cutting-edge innovation. It was the brainchild of Major Catherine Hayes, who had meticulously installed computer systems rivaling anything housed within the Pentagon's own flight simulation and electronic warfare analysis centers. This lab was the culmination of 2 decades of dedicated work in aviation electronics, fueled by a resourceful and unconventional approach to funding, repurposing equipment acquisition budgets through a creative lens. Staffed by a team of retired specialists who shared Hayes' unshakable belief that true military innovation demanded freedom from the stifling grip of institutional oversight, the facility existed as a hidden gem of experimental technology. On a cold Tuesday morning, Dr. Rebecca Stone arrived at the secretive site. Renowned across military circles as the foremost expert in adaptive flight control systems, Stone's reputation preceded her, granting her immediate clearance to access highly classified technologies that officially didn't exist in any inventory or report. Over the past 15 years, she had devoted her career to developing control interfaces for pilots with various disabilities. Her groundbreaking systems translated neural commands, direct impulses from the brain, into aircraft control inputs, with a precision surpassing even the finest human muscle responses. Her research represented the very frontier of human-machine integration. Yet despite her achievements, military medical boards had consistently dismissed her proposals for widespread implementation. As Stone reviewed the technical specifications of the prosthetic legs interface, she addressed Sergeant Chen with a mixture of professional curiosity and genuine respect. What Master Sergeant Hayes told me about your electromagnetic detection capabilities suggests your medical device embodies technology my team has strived to develop for over a decade. The neural interface systems necessary for precise prosthetic control mirror the pilot enhancement technologies poised to revolutionize military aviation. Within the concealed laboratory lay flight simulation equipment capable of replicating the exact atmospheric and electromagnetic conditions that Operation Silent Thunder would confront. Unlike traditional simulators relying on historical averages, these systems processed current meteorological data and electronic warfare scenarios reflecting the precise interference patterns Jessica had detected in the field. The simulations integrated real-time intelligence feeds, generating training environments that were not theoretical exercises but authentic operational landscapes. Hayes initiated holographic displays that floated in midair, illustrating detailed 3-dimensional models of a heavily modified MH-6M Blackhawk helicopter slated for a clandestine demonstration. The helicopter was outfitted with experimental electronic warfare countermeasures, enhanced flight control systems, and advanced communication equipment designed to maintain contact with ground stations even under hostile electromagnetic conditions. Most notably, the aircraft had been engineered to interface directly with Jessica's prosthetic leg, creating an integrated pilot aircraft system that could react to threats faster than any biological reflex could manage. The key to this operation, Hayes explained, manipulating the holographic controls to highlight the extensive modifications that had taken 6 months to design and implement, is not just proving that you can complete Operation Silent Thunder. We need to show that adaptive technology delivers capabilities unattainable by traditional aviation methods. This isn't simply about accommodating disability. It's about enhancement, tactical advantages that redefine what's possible. The modified Black Hawk represented millions of dollars worth of cutting-edge, experimental technology sourced through a sprawling network of research programs scattered across military facilities and defense contractors. Hayes's decades-long connections within the military electronics community had enabled him to bypass the usual bureaucratic labyrinth, acquiring components and expertise that would otherwise have taken years to clear through official channels. The result was an aircraft bristling with technologies scheduled for official deployment only 5 years in the future. Dr. Stone connected her diagnostic equipment to Jessica's prosthetic leg, running comprehensive system checks that confirmed the neural interface's flawless compatibility with the helicopter's modified control systems. The integration we're achieving here marks a fundamental leap forward in pilot aircraft interface technology, Stone said. Your prosthetic isn't merely controlling artificial limbs. It functions as a direct neural link to the aircraft's systems. This connection processes information and executes commands faster than conscious thought. The diagnostics revealed capabilities in Jessica's prosthetic that exceeded conventional aviation control system specifications across multiple critical parameters. The neural interface could simultaneously process numerous data streams while maintaining precise motor control. Electromagnetic sensors embedded within the prosthetic detected threats invisible to standard aircraft systems, and onboard computational power calculated optimal flight paths and control inputs with mathematical precision beyond human cognition. Hayes disclosed that the plan for this secret demonstration had been in motion since Jessica first approached Colonel Frank Morrison about leveraging her unique abilities for Operation Silent Thunder. We've been closely monitoring official mission planning for the past 6 weeks. It's become evident that conventional tactics will continue to fail unless someone proves that alternative methods can succeed. The military establishment won't take adaptive technology seriously until it sees irrefutable proof of superior performance. The plan entailed a full simulation of Operation Silent Thunder using the modified Black Hawk and Jessica's enhanced capabilities, followed by a live demonstration synchronized with the next official mission attempt. While traditional forces would struggle against electromagnetic interference and atmospheric conditions surpassing their training, Jessica would navigate the same mission profile using adaptive technologies designed to thrive in hostile environments. In the final moments, Dr. Stone installed additional interface hardware, linking Jessica's prosthetic directly to the aircraft's flight management systems. This created a control mechanism that responded to pilot commands with millisecond precision, a fraction of the delay seen in conventional inputs. The neural interface allows you to command aircraft systems through direct mental impulses, Stone explained. This eliminates the lag between recognizing a threat and responding appropriately. With the enhanced control systems, Jessica could simultaneously manage multiple aircraft functions without sacrificing perfect flight control, a capability that could prove decisive when pilots face rapid-fire challenges demanding instant reactions. Traditional pilot training focused on sequential problem-solving, a method ill-suited for electronic warfare scenarios, presenting simultaneous threats on multiple fronts. Accessing classified intelligence, Hayes revealed the timing of the next official Operation Silent Thunder mission, scheduled for the coming week. Colonel Morrison planned to deploy a conventional approach, utilizing standard aircraft and tactics that had repeatedly failed against the electromagnetic warfare challenges Jessica had identified. This predictable failure created the ideal opportunity to showcase the superiority of adaptive technology. The clandestine demonstration would follow flight paths parallel to the official mission, but stay clear of restricted airspace, avoiding jurisdictional conflicts. Jessica would face the same atmospheric conditions, electromagnetic interference patterns, and technical obstacles, but armed with adaptive technology capable of success where conventional methods faltered. As Dr. Stone finalized the integration of experimental flight control systems, she assured Jessica, "The interface we've built allows you to pilot the aircraft using the same neural pathways controlling your prosthetic leg. This means you can maintain flawless flight control while simultaneously processing complex data streams." The integrated pilot aircraft system was nothing short of a revolutionary leap in military aviation technology, poised to completely transform how pilots operated in the most hostile environments. Traditional aviation methods demanded that pilots constantly juggle numerous tasks and control inputs simultaneously, a cognitive burden that could quickly become overwhelming, especially under extreme battlefield conditions. But Jessica's neural interface shattered these old limitations. Instead of dividing her attention, the system allowed her to command the aircraft directly with her mind. Meanwhile, the prosthetic sensors embedded within her provided environmental awareness far beyond what standard instruments could deliver. Hayes revealed yet more enhancements. Modifications to the communication systems that enabled the demonstration flight to maintain uninterrupted contact with ground monitoring stations, even while operating inside the electronic warfare zones that would render conventional radio communications useless. We've developed communication protocols that can sustain data links despite the electromagnetic interference saturating the target area, Hayes explained. The results of your flight will be captured with such precision that dismissing the findings will be impossible. The new communication tech was adapted from space operations, where electromagnetic interference and signal degradation pose constant challenges. These systems had to function flawlessly under conditions that would obliterate any typical terrestrial radio system. Now modified for military aviation, they could maintain secure contact with ground stations even amidst the most hostile electronic warfare environments, conditions that would completely shut down conventional military communications. Dr. Stone conducted the final system checks with meticulous care. Each interface between Jessica's prosthetic and the upgraded aircraft was performing at peak efficiency. Integration is complete, he confirmed. Diagnostics show you have capabilities surpassing any conventional pilot aircraft interface by every measurable metric. Your neural connection speeds up response times, the electromagnetic sensors detect threats that standard systems overlook, and the onboard computer processing offers analytical abilities beyond human cognition. The comprehensive testing revealed that Jessica's enhancements were not just sufficient for Operation Silent Thunder, they were custom-tailored for the very challenges that had thwarted all previous mission attempts. Her prosthetic could detect electromagnetic interference long before it impacted aircraft systems, process multiple threat indicators at once, and maintain precise flight control through tactical scenarios that would overwhelm any traditional pilot. Hayes then went over the operational security measures designed to keep the secret demonstration hidden from military officials who might try to halt unauthorized mission activity. The flight would utilize aircraft that officially didn't exist, follow routes outside conventional tracking systems, and use communication frequencies invisible to standard military monitoring networks. The entire mission would be completed and documented before anyone in the formal chain of command even realized what had happened. These security protocols ensured Jessica could prove her abilities without risking court-martial or interference from bureaucratic forces more concerned with rigid procedures than with tactical innovation. The demonstration would stay within legal bounds, but remain effectively invisible to oversight systems capable of blocking its progress. Dr. Stone handed over the final briefing materials, which detailed every element of the advanced aircraft systems and how they integrated with Jessica's prosthetic enhancements. You now have access to technologies that embody the future of military aviation, combined with personal capabilities that surpass any conventional pilot training, he stated. The success of this flight could redefine military pilot selection, training, and equipment development for decades. The materials confirm that Jessica's unique blend of adaptive technology and practical combat experience placed her in a position to achieve objectives that military science had long deemed theoretically impossible. The very prosthetic leg that had ended her traditional flying career was, in fact, enabling evolutionary advancements in pilot aircraft integration. Hayes wrapped up the planning session with a review of contingency procedures to ensure Jessica's safety no matter how the demonstration unfolded. This mission will either prove that adaptive technology can succeed where conventional methods fail or expose limitations we haven't anticipated, Hayes said. Either way, the knowledge gained will be invaluable to future military aviation development. Your contribution will stand as breakthrough research regardless of outcome. With all final preparations complete, Jessica was equipped with technologies and capabilities never before tested under real operational conditions. The secret demonstration was set to occur within 72 hours, poised to deliver undeniable proof that adaptive enhancements could achieve objectives military aviation had long declared impossible. The question no longer centered on Jessica's qualifications for Operation Silent Thunder. It was whether the military establishment would accept that the future of aviation had arrived far earlier than anyone expected. At dawn, Fort Braxton stood bathed in crystal-clear light that promised perfect visibility for aviation operations. Yet atmospheric monitoring stations were already detecting subtle electromagnetic disturbances that would transform the seemingly ideal conditions into a battlefield of technology and signal warfare. Colonel Frank Morrison observed from the control tower's observation deck as the official Operation Silent Thunder aircraft underwent its final pre-flight preparations. Unbeknownst to him, just 30 miles away, Jessica was preparing for her own covert mission using equipment that officially did not exist. Major Christine Parker had been chosen to pilot the official mission after rigorous psychological evaluations and simulation training, which confirmed her exceptional qualifications for high-stress operations. Her 15 years of military aviation experience included the successful completion of 47 high-risk missions in hostile environments, and her technical expertise with the MH-60M Black Hawk helicopter placed her among the top 5% of all military aviators. Parker embodied everything the military establishment deemed essential for Operation Silent Thunder: superior training, extensive combat experience, and unwavering confidence in traditional tactical strategies. The official mission aircraft was outfitted with the most advanced electronic warfare countermeasures available, including signal jammers designed to disrupt enemy radar and communications equipment engineered to maintain contact with command centers under hostile conditions. Intelligence briefings had provided Parker with detailed terrain analyses, weather patterns, and known defensive systems, but the electromagnetic warfare threats Jessica had uncovered remained unacknowledged and absent from official planning. Inside the control tower, communications crackled with professional efficiency as Major Parker completed her pre-flight checklist. Her calm voice conveyed the unshakable confidence of someone who had never encountered a challenge beyond the scope of her training and determination. Phantom 6 requesting departure clearance for classified mission profile. All systems nominal. Crew ready for insertion operations. Phantom 6, you are cleared for departure, the controller responded. Weather conditions optimal. Winds favorable for all phases of operation. Execute mission profile according to briefed parameters and maintain communication schedule as directed. The controller's reply reflected institutional confidence that this attempt would succeed where previous missions had failed, thanks to enhanced training protocols and improved mission planning that addressed known tactical weaknesses. Dr. Stone was finishing the final system checks on the neural interface connections that would allow her prosthetic leg to directly control the aircraft's systems. The experimental communication gear hummed softly with electronic activity as it established encrypted data links with the Hayes monitoring station, creating a command and control network that operated outside official military channels while keeping real-time awareness of the evolving tactical situation. All interface systems are functioning at optimal levels, Dr. Stone reported as she carefully monitored the data streams flowing between Jessica's prosthetic and the aircraft's flight management systems. Your electromagnetic detection capabilities are showing clear readings of the interference patterns around the target zone. The neural control interface is responding to your command inputs with precision even better than our design specifications anticipated. Jessica's enhanced awareness was already uncovering atmospheric conditions that diverged sharply from the historical data the official mission had relied on for weather forecasts. The environmental sensors built into her prosthetic detected subtle pressure variations, electromagnetic field fluctuations, and changes in atmospheric density that could impact aircraft performance in ways conventional meteorological instruments simply couldn't detect. This information advantage, powered by her adaptive technology, was giving Jessica real-time awareness of conditions Major Parker would face without any warning. Hayes was monitoring both missions simultaneously from his underground command center, using intercepted communications and radar tracking to stay updated on the official operation while coordinating Jessica's demonstration flight. Phantom 6 is following the standard mission profile, maintaining altitude and airspeed that match previous attempts, Hayes informed. Jessica, your approach vector puts you on a parallel course, exposing you to identical atmospheric conditions while remaining outside restricted airspace. Coordinating these dual missions required flawless timing. Jessica needed to demonstrate the superior capabilities of her technology while avoiding any action that might be seen as interference with official military operations. The success of this demonstration hinged on facing the same challenges using different technological approaches, providing undeniable proof that adaptive technologies offered advantages over conventional aviation methods. Major Parker's first sign of trouble came in the form of subtle fluctuations on her instruments, suggesting malfunctions rather than outright electronic attacks. Control Phantom 6 is experiencing minor instrument anomalies. Navigation displays show drift inconsistent with GPS data. Request verification of position. Parker reported calmly, though the electromagnetic interference Jessica had predicted was already beginning to impact the official mission aircraft. The electronic warfare systems Jessica's prosthetic had detected operated on frequency ranges, ears, and power levels designed to induce gradual instrument degradation, disguising hostile interference as equipment failures. Major Parker was now trapped in the same invisible electronic warfare environment that had contributed to earlier mission failures. Without the awareness her prosthetic provided, Parker had no way to recognize that her aircraft was under attack by systems conventional detection equipment couldn't pick up. Jessica, on the other hand, received real-time feedback on the electromagnetic interference patterns affecting Phantom 6, all while remaining undetected by standard sensors. Hayes, I'm detecting electronic warfare activity consistent with the signatures identified during our analysis phase, Jessica reported. The interference targets navigation and communication systems, using graduated power increases that create apparent equipment malfunctions instead of overt hostile actions. Her prosthetics' built-in electromagnetic warfare detection capabilities revealed the enemy's tactical approach in real time, providing Jessica with crucial information to protect herself from attacks already compromising the official mission. Her neural interface processed interference data while maintaining precise flight control, demonstrating multitasking capabilities biological pilots simply couldn't match under electronic warfare conditions. As Phantom 6 approached the mountain valleys marking the most challenging phase of Operation Silent Thunder, Major Parker encountered atmospheric conditions beyond what her training had prepared her for. Control experiencing significant turbulence and wind shear inconsistent with forecast conditions. Aircraft handling requires constant correction, she reported. The weather patterns altered by climate change were presenting challenges simulations based on historical data hadn't anticipated. Jessica's approach to the same conditions, however, showcased the advantages of real-time environmental analysis over training grounded in past assumptions. Her prosthetic sensors delivered continuous updates on pressure changes, wind patterns, and electromagnetic field fluctuations, allowing her to anticipate atmospheric shifts and adjust flight parameters proactively rather than reacting after the fact. This matches the patterns we identified during data analysis, Jessica informed Hayes as she skillfully navigated through turbulence that would have overwhelmed a conventional pilot. My prosthetic sensors provide predictive data on wind and pressure variations, enabling anticipatory control inputs that keep flight parameters stable. The stark contrast between the missions became clear as Major Parker struggled while Jessica managed conditions with enhanced precision and foresight. The combination of electromagnetic warfare threats and atmospheric challenges that had overwhelmed traditional approaches were being countered successfully by adaptive technology, capable of processing multiple threat indicators while maintaining flawless aircraft control. Major Parker's situation deteriorated quickly as electromagnetic interference intensified and atmospheric conditions grew more hostile to conventional flight methods. Control, I'm experiencing multiple system malfunctions, navigation errors, communication interference, and flight control anomalies. Requesting permission to abort mission and return to base immediately, she reported, professionalism tinged with concern, replacing the confidence she'd had at takeoff. The electronic warfare systems had achieved their intended effect, bombarding the mission with simultaneous challenges beyond the scope of conventional pilot training. Major Parker faced the same combination of electronic attacks and adverse weather that had doomed previous Silent Thunder attempts, and her responses followed the same patterns that led to failure and aircraft loss. Jessica, meanwhile, confronted identical electromagnetic warfare activity in atmospheric conditions, but her prosthetics detection capabilities allowed her to differentiate real equipment failures from electronic interference. She maintained awareness of environmental threats invisible to conventional instruments. Hayes, I'm passing through the electronic warfare zone impacting Phantom 6, Jessica informed Hayes. The prosthetic sensors provide clear identification of interference sources, allowing me to implement countermeasures that preserve aircraft system integrity. The neural interface technology enabled Jessica to juggle electronic warfare countermeasures while holding precise flight control and simultaneously processing atmospheric data. Her advanced abilities were proving that adaptive technology could succeed in operational environments where conventional methods failed, offering a real-time demonstration of capabilities military science had once deemed impossible. As Major Parker initiated emergency abort procedures and began her return to base, Jessica pressed forward, advancing through the hostile, operational environment that had defeated the official mission. The advanced electromagnetic warfare systems that had completely overwhelmed Phantom 6's electronics were now being effectively countered by cutting-edge technology integrated directly into Jessica's prosthetic limb. Meanwhile, the hostile atmospheric conditions that had previously hampered conventional flight control were skillfully managed through a neural interface system that reacted with a speed surpassing even natural human reflexes. As the mission unfolded, it became clear that Phantom 6 had been forced to abort due to multiple system failures compounded by the adverse atmospheric environment, a grim reality confirmed by Hayes monitoring the official communications. In stark contrast, Jessica was now the only aircraft operating within the target zone, and despite facing the very same overwhelming conditions, every system on board her aircraft was performing well within acceptable parameters. Jessica's ability to successfully navigate through the same brutal environment that had doomed the official mission offered undeniable proof that adaptive technology could accomplish objectives once deemed impossible by traditional military aviation standards. Her prosthetic leg was not merely compensating for a disability, but demonstrating superior capabilities, outperforming standard pilot aircraft interfaces while simultaneously offering threat detection and environmental awareness far beyond what conventional systems could achieve. The final approach to the target zone represented the most perilous segment of Operation Silent Thunder. It was a treacherous gauntlet where past missions had failed, victims to a deadly combination of unforgiving terrain, relentless electromagnetic warfare, and volatile atmospheric conditions, obstacles that conventional approaches had never overcome. Jessica's enhanced abilities were now being tested in the crucible of these exact, mission-critical challenges that had previously resulted in lost aircraft and fallen pilots. As Jessica announced her approach, her prosthetics' advanced sensors detected an escalation of electromagnetic interference and atmospheric turbulence, the unmistakable signature of the mission's most dangerous phase. Calmly and with confidence, she reported that all her enhanced systems were functioning normally, maintaining precise flight control even amidst electronic warfare tactics that would have crippled any conventional aircraft. Her successful completion of the final approach phase of Operation Silent Thunder marked a historic milestone in military aviation. It proved decisively that adaptive technology was not only viable, but capable of succeeding where traditional methods had repeatedly failed. The unique combination of neural interface control, electromagnetic warfare detection, and heightened environmental awareness embedded in Jessica's prosthetic equipment had overcome challenges that the military's best pilots, equipped with the most advanced conventional gear, had not. As Jessica completed her mission profile, deemed impossible by official standards, her flight path was meticulously recorded by monitoring systems, providing irrefutable documentation of the superior performance of adaptive technology under operational conditions that had consistently defeated conventional tactics. This demonstration was rapidly reshaping the understanding of military aviation's future, proving that it would not rest on traditional training or standard equipment, but rather on adaptive enhancements that extended capabilities beyond human biological limits. Jessica's extraordinary success, achieved while the official mission failed under identical conditions, provided the military establishment with incontrovertible evidence that their entrenched assumptions about disability, pilot capability, and technological enhancement required radical reassessment. What had once been viewed by medical boards as a disqualifying physical limitation, the prosthetic leg, was now revealed to be a revolutionary advancement with the power to transform military aviation operations worldwide. Within 2 hours of Jessica's triumphant return, an emergency debriefing was convened inside the Pentagon's most secure conference room. Walls lined with electromagnetic shielding ensured that discussions regarding these groundbreaking military capabilities would remain classified at the highest level. General Patricia Hawkins, commander of Air Force Special Operations Command, had flown in directly from Washington after reviewing preliminary mission reports that pointed to a fundamental need to reevaluate assumptions about pilot capability and aircraft systems. Colonel Morrison entered the room bearing the quiet, subdued demeanor of a seasoned officer whose long-held professional worldview was being challenged by new evidence that could no longer be ignored or rationalized by traditional military science. His decades of experience in aviation operations that taught him to recognize when exceptional circumstances demanded acknowledgement of realities that institutional thinking had failed to anticipate. The fact that Operation Silent Thunder had been completed successfully by someone the military had officially classified as medically unfit for flight duty represented precisely this kind of paradigm-shifting breakthrough. General Hawkins, her voice authoritative and steady, shaped by her command of air operations in 3 separate theaters of conflict, addressed the room. The mission data we've reviewed confirms that Sergeant Chen has achieved what our most experienced pilots and advanced aircraft could not. More importantly, her success stems from technological capabilities that have the potential to fundamentally transform military aviation operations across all branches of service. Jessica sat at the conference table with quiet confidence, the validation of her theories evident in the real-world results she had delivered under the most demanding operational circumstances. Her prosthetic leg remained connected to portable monitoring equipment, continuously analyzing electromagnetic interference patterns and atmospheric data in real time, offering a live demonstration of the capabilities that had enabled her historic success. What medical boards had once dismissed as a limitation was now recognized as a revolutionary advancement in pilot aircraft integration. Master Sergeant Hayes presented detailed mission analysis, contrasting every aspect of Jessica's flight with the failed conventional mission under identical conditions. The electromagnetic warfare detection, integrated into Jessica's prosthetic, identified and countered hostile electronic attacks undetectable by even the most sophisticated aircraft systems, representing a quantum leap forward in electronic warfare countermeasures with the power to protect American aviation assets worldwide. The technical data revealed capabilities surpassing decades of multi-million-dollar military research programs. Jessica's prosthetic exhibited electromagnetic detection sensitivity, neural interface responsiveness, and multitasking proficiency that represented the cutting edge of military aviation technology, developed not through deliberate engineering, but as a consequence of medical necessity. Her unique circumstances had inadvertently realized exactly the kind of pilot enhancement that Pentagon research initiatives had long sought. Dr. Stone provided neurological insights, explaining how Jessica's brain-machine interface had achieved performance levels was unreachable through conventional pilot training. The neural pathways forged through prosthetic control enabled simultaneous processing of multiple data streams while maintaining precise motor control. This was not merely adaptive technology, but genuine human enhancement that surpassed biological limitations. General Hawkins carefully reviewed mission recordings showing Jessica's flawless flight control amidst managing electronic warfare countermeasures and processing complex atmospheric data that would have overwhelmed any conventional pilot. Sergeant Chen, she declared, your demonstration has conclusively proven that our assumptions about medical fitness for flight duty have not only been wrong but actively counterproductive. The technology we once classified as a disqualifying limitation is in fact the key to the next evolutionary leap in military aviation. Her words carried immense weight, coming from senior military leadership whose careers were forged on the accurate evaluation of pilot capabilities and aircraft performance in combat. General Hawkins' recognition that adaptive technology could enhance rather than hinder pilot performance provided institutional validation that would reshape military aviation policies for decades ahead. Colonel Morrison then rose to address Jessica directly. His tone was now one of professional respect, a sharp contrast to the dismissive attitude he had displayed during their initial encounter. Sergeant Chen, I owe you more than an apology. Your success has demonstrated our institution had long been failing to recognize talents and capabilities that could literally save lives and accomplish objectives we once thought were beyond reach. The courage you exhibited in pushing forward with this demonstration, despite widespread skepticism, perfectly embodies the kind of innovative mindset that modern military operations desperately need. Colonel Morrison's complete shift in perspective was not just a personal change. It symbolized a broader institutional evolution, sparked by Jessica's groundbreaking success, sweeping through the ranks of military aviation leadership. For too long, outdated assumptions about disability, enhancement, and pilot qualifications dominated military doctrine. Those old beliefs that physical limitations meant diminished operational value were finally being replaced by hard evidence proving that adaptive technology could actually provide tactical advantages rather than impose restrictions. Dr. Stone explained how Jessica's triumph had validated years of research that might revolutionize medical treatment for military personnel who had suffered injuries once considered career-ending. The neural interface technologies demonstrated during her mission showed the potential to not only restore flight capabilities, but to enhance performance beyond pre-injury levels. This wasn't mere accommodation, it was about optimization, creating superior operational strengths that redefine what's possible. The implications went far beyond giving individuals a second chance in their careers. They heralded a fundamental shift in how military medicine approaches injury treatment and capability enhancement. Jessica's demonstration proved conclusively that adaptive technology, when correctly applied, can transform perceived physical limitations into genuine tactical advantages. This opened doors for countless service members whose injuries had previously forced them out of service. General Hawkins followed with a historic announcement: immediate policy reforms that would base medical evaluations for military aviation not on outdated assumptions, but on demonstrated, measurable capabilities. Effective immediately, the Air Force would launch adaptive technology assessment programs designed to evaluate enhancement potential rather than merely biological function. Sergeant Chen's achievement had shown us that the future of military aviation depends on the seamless integration of human skill and machine technology, amplifying human capability in unprecedented ways. These policy changes marked a watershed moment in military medicine and aviation operations, impacting thousands of service members whose careers had been unjustly limited by traditional disability standards. Jessica's demonstration created an important precedent by redefining adaptive technology as enhancement, not just accommodation. This breakthrough opened career paths previously closed to military personnel with various physical conditions. Hayes disclosed that multiple defense contractors were already clamoring for access to the technologies Jessica had utilized, eager to develop commercially viable systems that could deliver similar capabilities to military pilots around the globe. The electromagnetic warfare countermeasures and neural interface systems featured in this mission were estimated to hold commercial value exceeding $50 million. Yet their strategic value to military operations was beyond quantification. This surge in commercial interest underscored how Jessica's approach to adaptive technology had applications far exceeding individual accommodation. Defense contractors recognized that neural interface systems and electromagnetic detection technologies could provide decisive competitive advantages in military aviation markets, where technological superiority determines contract awards worth billions. Dr. Stone announced the establishment of an advanced human-machine integration research center dedicated to developing adaptive technologies specifically for military aviation, building on the principles Jessica's success had firmly established. This new facility would focus on creating enhancement systems that amplify human capabilities, moving beyond mere replacement of lost functions. The ultimate goal was to equip every military pilot with abilities surpassing traditional biological limits. This research center represented a clear institutional commitment to advancing the technological methods Jessica had demonstrated to be effective. Military leadership was investing heavily in adaptive enhancement research that could revolutionize aviation operations while preserving career opportunities for service members who otherwise might have been forced to retire due to injury. Jessica addressed the assembled military leadership with the calm authority of someone whose tangible achievements commanded respect. She asserted that the success of this mission proves we must fundamentally revise our understanding of human capability and technological potential. Adaptive technology is not about overcoming limitations. It is about expanding possibilities that benefit everyone involved in military operations. Her words carried the unique weight that comes only from having achieved extraordinary objectives under the most demanding operational conditions, successes that institutional thinking had long deemed impossible. Her experience demonstrated that breakthrough capabilities could emerge precisely from situations traditionally viewed as disadvantages. General Hawkins closed the briefing by announcing sweeping changes that would reshape military aviation training, medical evaluation, and technology development based on the principles Jessica's success had validated. This demonstration showed us that the future of military aviation lies not in clinging to outdated methods, but in embracing enhancement technologies capable of creating capabilities we had never before imagined. The courage and innovation Jessica Chen displayed would serve as a beacon of inspiration for military operations worldwide. The transformation she initiated extended well beyond her individual achievements, impacting military medicine, aviation technology, and operational capabilities for decades to come. Her demonstration, proving that adaptive technology could succeed where conventional methods failed, created a precedent for viewing enhancement as progress rather than accommodation. It opened doors to possibilities that will benefit military operations globally. The meeting concluded with Jessica being appointed to lead the Advanced Human-Machine Integration Program, granting her the resources and authority needed to develop the technologies her success had proven effective. What was once seen as a disqualifying medical condition, a prosthetic leg, was now the foundation for revolutionary capabilities poised to transform military aviation operations for generations of future pilots.